Hey guys, it's Carly here for MFT. Now, if you've seen me around, you know that I adore shaker cards, so I thought I would share my latest one with you today. One of my favorite things to use to make shaker windows is word dies, and one of my very favorite word dies is the Very Big High from MFT. If you don't have this, I highly recommend it. I just run it through my die cut machine with heavyweight cardstock, and then I put a little bit of glue around all of the letter openings just to make sure that when I put that acetate on with the double-sided tape, it stays really nice and stuck down. Now that I've got my shaker window, I need to make my shaker container, so I like to use foam tape for this. And depending on what I want to put in the shaker, sometimes I'll use 1 layer of foam tape or sometimes 2. When I use 2, I like to just fold it over and then pull off half of the liner paper and stick it down. So then I've got the double layer of foam tape, easy peasy. And despite my best efforts, sometimes that foam tape doesn't go on super flat and it gives your panel a little bit of a curve. So I like to just set it under something heavy for a while and make it flatten out a little bit. So while that's flattening, I'm going to move on to my shaker pieces. I love stamp sets that have small images that you can turn into shaker bits. So the Chip Hooray set makes me so happy because it's got these adorable little cooking images like a whisk, a chef's hat, a cookie, so it's so perfect. Now normally I would stamp and die cut, but since I want to make a bunch of these little shaker bits, I'm going to die cut first to make a little template, and then I'm going to use that to stamp a whole bunch of blank die cuts. Let me show you. So I've die cut all the shapes from a little scrap of cardstock. I'm going to put the blank dies aside and grab this little scrap template and put it into my MISTI. Then I'm going to use that to help me load up all of the stamps onto my MISTI lid. Having the die cut opening in that template can also help you align the stamp so it's in the right position when you do stamp it later. But if you don't get right on the first try, which I totally did not here, I have a trick for that too. So after all the stamps are in my MISTI, I'm going to put a piece of acetate over my template. Then I'm going to ink up my stamps and stamp it onto that acetate to see, did I get everything lined up correctly? And if it is lined up how you want it, great. Then you just clean off the acetate, get it out of the way, and start loading those die cuts into the template. If it's not, which it is not for me here, I get to move the stamps around and have another test go before I commit to stamping on my die cuts. And now that the stamps are in the right spot, the acetate is gone, and now I'm just loading up that template with my little blank die cuts. Then I can ink up my stamps and stamp onto those blank die cuts. Once those are done, I can take them out of my template. Now I have one of those photopolymer mats at my MISTI, so I find it easier to remove the template first. So I'm going to remove the template, and then I'll take off all the stamped die cuts. Then I can put my template back in place, fill it with more blank dies, stamp on them, and so on and so on. So this gives me an easy way to make lots of shaker bits without having to position the die cut on each stamped image and run it through my die cut machine a whole bunch of times. So the next step was to color all those little shaker pieces. I love to color, but it's something I'm super slow at, and I figured you didn't have 2 hours to watch that. So those are the colors I used. Then I grabbed that shaker window that I made and another piece of acetate that's going to fit on the back of it. But I've set it on the front to help it use as a guide, because I'm actually going to glue some of these in place so that even when I'm shaking my card, there's always something cute showing. Now that I feel like I have enough of them in place on that acetate, I'm going to use it to seal my shaker. So I'm going to put a little bit of powder tulle on the edges of my tape so it keeps my sequins from sticking. Then I'm going to put in the rest of the flat die cut, the shaker bits that we've made, and that way I can kind of arrange them and make sure that they're flat, facing the right direction. Then after that, I'm going to throw in some sequins, pull off that liner tape, and seal it all with the other piece of acetate. And now my shaker window is all ready to go. I like doing it this way because I don't have to try to capture any sequins while I'm putting it together. It's an easy way to make it self-contained, and it gives me a little wiggle room to decide what I'm going to put as the background color, which is good because I changed my mind this time. So I originally thought I was going to use one of these gorgeous pieces from the orange sherbet paper pad, but it was a little too busy with all my shaker bits. So I grabbed a piece of cotton candy cardstock instead, and I'm going to put that on the front of my folded card and then put my shaker window on top of that. So I added some more double-sided adhesive to the back of that shaker window, and I'm just pulling off the liner paper a little bit at a time to help me position everything correctly onto the front of that folded card. Once I've got that all assembled, I added a little bit more of a sentiment stamped underneath the high from the Chip Hooray set and one of the adorable kitties eating a cookie. Here it is, and I love how it turned out. Now, in case you needed to see them again, here are the Copic colors I used. Maybe someday I'll have the courage to make a Copic coloring video, but not quite yet. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you are inspired to craft today, and I hope you get time to do it. Thanks again for watching. Happy crafting.